Here's an uncomfortable truth about nutrition research that undermines a huge portion of what we think we know. We're terrible at accurately reporting what we eat and when we eat it. Self-reported dietary data, which most intermittent fasting studies rely on, is notoriously unreliable. This isn't about people being dishonest. It's about memory being fallible, about social desirability bias affecting our reporting, and about the fundamental difficulty of accurately tracking eating behavior. Understanding this problem will completely change how you evaluate diet studies. Research comparing self-reported food intake to objective measures like doubly labeled water, which tracks actual energy expenditure, consistently shows that people underreport their calorie intake by 20 to 30% on average. Some underreport by 50% or more. This isn't conscious lying in most cases. People genuinely forget snacks, misjudge portion sizes, don't account for cooking oils and condiments, and have selective memory about eating episodes, especially those that feel indulgent or shameful. We remember the healthy meals and forget the mindless grazing. For intermittent fasting studies, self-reporting creates specific problems. Participants are told to eat only during certain hours. They know what the right answer is supposed to be. Some genuinely believe they're adhering perfectly when in fact they're having coffee with cream, snacking during fasting periods, or extending their eating windows beyond protocol without realizing it. Others know they're violating the protocol but underreport violations because of shame or because they don't want to look like failures to researchers. This creates data showing better adherence than actually occurred, making the intervention look more effective than it really is. The problem compounds over time. In a 2-week study, people might maintain vigilant food logging. By week 8, logging fatigue sets in. People stop recording every bite, start estimating rather than measuring, and retrospectively fill in food diaries from memory rather than real-time recording. The data quality deteriorates dramatically, but this degradation often isn't captured or reported in the final study results. We just get average data that masks massive variation in reporting quality. Social desirability bias is particularly strong in dietary studies. People want to appear health-conscious, compliant, and successful. They want to please researchers who have invested time in studying them. This leads to systematically biased reporting where healthy foods are overreported and less healthy foods are underreported. People report eating more vegetables and less dessert than they actually consumed. For intermittent fasting, this means reported eating windows might be more restricted than actual eating windows. Memory limitations are a huge factor. If you're asked at the end of the day to recall everything you ate and when you ate it, you'll miss things. The handful of nuts you grabbed walking past the kitchen. The bite of your kid's sandwich. The latte you had mid-morning that you didn't register as breaking your fast, even though it contained calories. These small episodes add up, but rarely make it into food logs. When researchers find that intermittent fasting causes spontaneous calorie reduction, some of that might be real behavioral change, but some might be underreporting that makes it look like people ate less than they actually did. There are better methods, but they're expensive and difficult to implement. Metabolic ward studies where all food is provided and consumption is directly observed give accurate data, but they're artificial. People aren't eating their normal diets in their normal environments. These studies can tell you about biological responses to controlled feeding, but not about real-world effectiveness of self-directed dietary patterns. Wearable devices and apps with photo documentation improve accuracy somewhat, but people can still choose not to log certain foods or times. Biomarkers like ketone levels during fasting periods provide some objective verification, but they don't tell you about total calorie intake or specific foods consumed. Continuous glucose monitors have emerged as a semi-objective way to verify meal timing. If someone claims they stopped eating at 6 p.m., but their glucose monitor shows a spike at 9 p.m., that's pretty clear evidence of protocol violation. But even these have limitations. Not everyone has access to continuous glucose monitors. They're expensive, and some foods cause minimal glucose changes despite containing significant calories. They're helpful verification tools, but not complete solutions. Here's why this matters for interpreting intermittent fasting research. When studies show benefits, but rely on self-reported adherence, we don't actually know how well people followed the protocol. Maybe the benefits came from the 15% of participants who genuinely stuck to the eating window. Maybe the majority were loosely following the pattern with frequent violations, suggesting the protocol is more flexible than presented. Maybe everyone was underreporting calories and the benefits came from larger energy deficits than realized. We simply can't know without objective verification. The practical implication is that you should weight evidence from controlled feeding studies more heavily than free-living studies with self-reported intake, even though the controlled studies are less representative of real life. When reading diet research, look for what methods were used to assess adherence. Were food diaries reviewed by researchers? Was there photo documentation? Were there biomarkers measured? Or was it just participants reporting their eating retrospectively? The more objective the verification, the more you can trust the findings. Studies showing that intermittent fasting works wonderfully based purely on self-reported adherence should be viewed with substantial skepticism. The intervention might work, but we can't be confident about what actually happened during the study.